Trade rumors keep picking up for the Habs as Matthias Brunet on BPM Spa says he expects something huge to go down with Kent Hughes and says the Habs have too much ammunition for something big not to happen. We're going to get into that. Plus, Marc Dumont analyzes the draft pick value of every Habs draft in the last 10-ish years, and the recent results might surprise you. And finally, we got to talk about BOGDAN KONYUSHKOV, who is participating in a KHL Stars versus NHL Stars tournament, selected as one of the stars for the KHL at just 21 years old. There was a lot of awesome stuff coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And Jesse, we're going to start with Marc Dumont. And this tells us a lot about Kent Hughes and the direction of the organization since he took over from Biceps Bergevin himself. And I'm just going to bring this up here. So we have a look. Dumont had a great article there today talking about the pre-draft value of the 2024 Montreal Canadiens picks, and he took this from Michael Schuker. It's from an old paper from about 2011 that analyzes the expected value in terms of, they kind of have their own numbering system. I'll link the article and the paper down below so you guys can go have a look. But it ranks each draft pick in the draft from first pick overall all the way to the last pick with a number value. And when you look at the Montreal Canadiens, well, Jesse, over the past 3 years, the red represents Kent Hughes since he took over. Look at the stark difference between the Bergevin era versus the current Kent Hughes era. The Habs, in the last 3 years, have had some unbelievably stacked pre-draft rankings, as in which draft picks they've had available to them, mostly because Kent Hughes has made those trades for those draft picks, and we've fully bought into the rebuild, with this year having more available picks than last year, and last year also counted picks that the Habs had before I think they traded for Alex Newhook. So some amazing stuff, and I think this just shows what a great job the organization has done. Even though, you know, Habs fans were kind of expecting, oh, this is going to be tough to go through a rebuild, it is certainly paying off.
Absolutely. It's like the time for the rebuild came, the Kent Hughes era, and we're really doing it right. And, you know, there was a lot of debates, like even before Kent Hughes came in, like, should we rebuild this team? Should we not? You know, the time came. That's what matters now. And we're really doing it the right way. So as Montreal Canadiens fans, I think we can take so much solace for this. But if we're looking at this chart, I think that there's some really big key takeaways. Now, first, I think it's important to talk about the past first. Is like, it's not since 1994 that we're going to have so many picks that we're going to have for next year's selection. We got a lot this year, but then 12 next year, right? Which is huge. Obviously, you feel like we're going to be using some of those picks to kind of transition to the next level. But what's so nice is finding that balance between trading some of those picks, you know, for immediate, like, NHL ready players. But then at the same time, we're still going to be at that draft table quite a bit picking, right? So for me, that signals like next year is really like when the rebuild is fully over, right? And that draft is almost what signals the rebuild being over. So not only you start becoming more competitive, obviously this roster is going to be so much different, but you're also going to be selecting a lot of guys. That means getting into a contention window, but while then still being able to add these prospects that are really going to help this team, you know, for kind of years to come, which I think is such a competitive edge that this Montreal Canadiens team will have.
It's so cool to see just the amount of capital they have to do one thing or another. One, to draft players, to develop them, to turn into stars, like we're seeing with a few guys. Joshua Waugh is going to fight for a top 6 spot this year. Slav is already a first-line talent in the NHL. We might see Beck come up. We're seeing Lane Hudson doing amazing stuff. But also, these other picks, even in the past 2 years, right? Not even just this year, but in the past years, these guys that they could potentially move for more assets, and the picks coming up in the future that they could bundle this year. Like in a trade this offseason, the Habs could trade like a first, a second, and a third, and they would still have a pretty normal draft, right? So the Habs just have so much ammunition, which we're going to talk about that specific word later. That wasn't intentional, to do so many amazing things. So it's great. This team's going to look super different heading into the next couple of years, but I think you're right. Next year at the draft, even if the Habs trade a couple picks, that'll signal kind of the end, because I think it's going to be the last time, hopefully, the Habs have like a high-ish pick in the first round from their own doing. It's going to be so fun to see what's to come. But we're going to move on to the next topic of this video, Jesse, and we got to talk a bit about BOGDAN KONYUSHKOV. And he is going to participate in a very interesting tournament. Now, this is from NHL News Hub on Twitter, and if you don't follow them, or Hockey News Hub, sorry, not NHL News Hub, on Twitter, they are kind of a KHL reporting account. It's not everything is official, as they say on their own page. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. It is what it is, but they follow the KHL. And he said there looks to be some kind of NHL Stars versus KHL Stars game being organized. Mikhail Sergachev and Artemi Panarin are the organizers. Ovechkin's getting invited, Shesterkin's getting invited, but he can confirm some other players that are going to be involved are NHLers Kirill Marchenko, Vladislav Gavrikov. But Habs prospect, KHL player Bogdan Konyushkov is going to be playing. He's a 21-year-old KHL defenseman, Jesse, playing for the KHL Stars in this tournament. Now, I know it's nothing like official. This tournament's not like a big officially sanctioned thing, but it kind of is in Russia, and it's just really interesting to see that him, of all the people that they could have chosen, is going to get to represent Team KHL in this. So I'm just super happy to see this. We haven't heard a whole lot on the Bogdan front in a while, but he's just one of those guys that keeps flying under the radar, and I think we'll be happy about that until the moment that he's ready to come over to North America.
And rightfully so, right? And the big question is, who is Bogdan going to lay out at this tournament? Is it going to be Panarin, right? But we do know one thing for sure is he steps up to the table, So it's like, for me, it's an opportunity for him to show out and really against some of the better players in the world. And you really have to feel like if you're Bogdan Konyushkov, for sure you're happy you're developing over in Russia, but when you're a competitor like him, you want to play against the best in the world. Oh, yeah. So for me, I say bring it on. This is great news because once he's already got that itch, right, to play in the NHL, once he starts playing against the best of the best other NHLers, it's going to make him want to make that jump to North America even sooner. We know it's not all in his hands, right? But we're going to have this player at some point, I feel, playing for this team right as we get into our competitive window. And this is a guy that we just can't sleep on.
And he's also teammates with top prospect Anton Salayev. So he's going to get some insight into that whole process, see what Salayev thinks whenever he goes to North America, because I think he still has a contract to finish out over the next year or two. But to speak with these other guys, right, to understand what kind of stuff's going on, like what that transition might be like. And I'm sure Bogdan's enjoying himself. He has such a great role on Torpedo. He's a guy that is super young, but given like the C for different things here and there, like he's just doing everything right. So like you said, there's really no downside in this. This is just amazing stuff. He'll play against the best players in the world, the best Russian players in the world. He'll get to prove himself, hopefully endear himself to them. Then maybe that can get him some NHL connections, some more notoriety over in the NHL. And if teams come knocking, or well, maybe not other teams, but Kent Hughes comes knocking saying, hey, we'll pay you a lot, maybe we'll find a way to get him over sooner rather than later. But the final thing, Jesse, we got to talk a bit about some juicy news. And this is Matthias Brunet. Now, this is not some huge report. However, as the days go by, Jesse, as we get closer and closer to the draft, as we get closer and closer to free agency, trades are going to start going down. We're already seeing some extensions from some teams. Pretty much every insider is that's tuned in at all to Montreal is saying that something big is about to happen. Like, Arber Basu saying, I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked if they picked at number 26. We got other people saying, Jordan Harris, if someone's going to get traded, we're going to get a draft pick trade. Well, Matthias Brunet was the most recent. And on BPM Spa, he kind of went in to say, according to him, the Habs have too much ammunition to not do anything. He said this team's going to look super different come the next year, especially the next 2 years. And he said overall, when you look at this Montreal Canadiens organization, there's going to be a huge move. They're going to do something. He said he'd be surprised if they picked at 26, which is a sentiment that we're hearing from a lot of people who may be tuned into the organization. And as the days go by, Jesse, I know we've talked about this too. Like, it just makes sense to make a move. Gosh, we've been talking about how the Habs could make another draft day trade. It feels like way back in September when the season started, right? Like, we know something's probably going to come. It's Kent Hughes' MO. But just to hear more and more and more voices with varying levels of insider knowledge and credibility, right? Ranging from the top Habs insiders to people just on sports shows, including just us. We're just kind of a couple dudes chatting about the Habs, but that sentiment is there. And Kent Hughes has kind of made it obvious. And I'm just excited every single day when I hear more and more people talking about this, that something maybe even bigger than we imagined might end up going down.
Yeah. And for me, it's like Jeff Gordon himself did say this too. It's almost like, and I was actually surprised to see him say so much because this organization has been so tight-lipped, right? But at that end of the year press conference, he was saying like, we want this to be like a major summer for us and making a lot of moves. And, even for me, like I want what's best for this team and I want us to do it the right way and really take our time. But if they feel it's time to put that, to kind of shift up gears, I'm really there for them because I think they're great hockey minds. I think one thing that's really well reported, from this article is that we really definitely need to expect the unexpected, right? Yeah. We talk about the usual suspects, Lane, Nietzsche's, everybody else, but Kent Hughes, right? We know what a next level hockey mind is. He's always thinking about the next thing, what's unexpected, maybe players that maybe aren't as valued from other teams, right? That he can really slip in, right? That's just the way he likes to work in a lot of ways where he really finds so much value. So absolutely. And I feel like as long as it's just a young top player, basically there's no one off limits for Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes, he's just identifying that and he's going through his list throughout the NHL. I don't think he's going to stop till he gets that young core that he is really proud of.
And one thing I really like right now too is with the culture of the Montreal Canadiens and their ability to get the most out of the players that they bring in. We talk about top talent. We know the Habs are looking for a top 6 style winger or center that could probably play some wing, whatever it may be. But I truly believe that the Habs, with what they have in the organization, with the people they put in place, with Martin St. Louis at the helm right now, they'll have the ability to squeeze more out of players than maybe we once thought, right? And we always say Natchez is going to turn into that kind of star, whatever. But there might be some other guys that we're kind of maybe not discounting, but not coming to mind right away as that potential top 6 talent because they haven't been put in the right position to succeed, right? But that's something, like you said, expect the unexpected. Anyone could maybe fit that bill where they could thrive in a new situation like Montreal. And I don't even know who it might be. We have one guy we're going to mention coming up tomorrow, another guy who plays for an Eastern Conference team. I'll let you guys stew on who that might be, but we'll bring it up in the live stream, so we hope you guys tune in then, because for now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Let us know down below, what's an underrated player you think the Habs could trade for? We'd love to hear from you. You know what? I screwed up the outro, so this doesn't happen very often. So, if you witnessed me screwing up the outro, I'm going to get you to type the number 4 down below, because that's what we always do when you little Easter eggs at the end of it. Only like 15-20% of you stick to the end of the video. So if you saw that mishap on the outro, just let us know down below. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.